My friends and I obtained 37 platinum trophies on PlayStation over the course of 2024, including some really tough ones like Balatro and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I thought, why not go through them here on YouTube and then tier list them based on whether they're games that we would platinum again if we had the choice, or games that we wouldn't even touch with a barge pole if given the choice to try them again. So here we are on Tier Maker, and the way that I'm listing these platinum trophies out is whether they actually improved the game or whether they made it worse, or whether it didn't really do anything to the enjoyment of the game. Because I think the reason that I enjoy platinum trophy hunting is that in some cases it's really elevated the game to make me want to play it even more, and in some cases it's also warped the game to the point where I don't particularly want to touch it ever again, with one game coming straight to mind in particular. So all the games that I have listed here are in order of the time in which we finished them, and the first trophy that we got this year was Coffee Talk, and later we got Coffee Talk 2 as well. This is a really lovely, chill, cozy game, and it really encapsulated what I like to do when it comes to trophy hunting, where all of my friends will come over, one of us will be playing the game, the rest of us just experiencing the game through the eyes of the person playing it. Maybe we'll pass the controller over once in a while, and Coffee Talk was really good for that. It's not a difficult trophy, it was quite enjoyable. There were some times where it felt like it was drawing itself out a little bit, but certainly not to any egregious level, so I would put Coffee Talk and probably Coffee Talk 2 as well in the memorable category for that reason. Next up we have Plague Tale Requiem. If you haven't played the Plague Tale games, they are fantastic, and the storytelling in these games is done so well. It's a bit of a depressing tale, not gonna lie to you, so if you want to feel a good time, maybe don't play this one, but it was a really good, enjoyable experience. The platinum wasn't too difficult. We watched my friend playing through it to get the collectibles, but also having those collectibles made you stronger throughout the game, so they're the sort of things you would have wanted to have done anyway, and the story was so good. Honestly, I'd actually put this in would go again. Like, this is a game I'd absolutely experience with the platinum again. So next up we have Laika Age Through Blood, which again, I didn't do this particular trophy, but I love a Metroidvania, and this is absolutely one I would have done if my friend wasn't absolutely adamant about doing this one himself. But it's a wonderful Metroidvania. It kind of takes notes from like the old Evel Knievel games or Trials, where you're on the back of a motorcycle and you have to perform on the motorcycle whilst also running and gunning various enemies. Again, a little bit depressing on the story, but the trophy list was actually really good for this. There were very few trophies that weren't tied to just taking the game to completion, making sure you'd done all the side quests and interacting with all of the characters, so I'd say that this was a really strong one. And then next up is Tekken 8. Now, I love Tekken, I love all fighting games, we all know this, but in terms of the trophy list, I'd say it was pretty forgettable. Honestly, the trophies in Tekken 8 are just very nothing. If you want a quick plat, then Tekken 8's really good for that. It's not difficult in any way. It doesn't involve a lot of online trophies. All it really takes you through is arcade mode and the story mode. And I think the story mode in fighting games is not the reason that I'm playing them to begin with. So while I love Tekken 8 as a game, its trophy list, meh. Next up is Cocoon, and Cocoon is short, it's sweet, it's brilliantly done, very easy for people to interact with. As I say, one of the main things I love about going through games with friends the way I do is that it really renews the experience of a single player game because everyone likes to get involved, and Cocoon was incredible for that. So for that reason, it's going alongside Laika as a renewed game, but even if you just play through this without the trophy list, you owe it to yourself to play this because it is genuinely brilliant. Next up is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, I'm not the biggest Assassin's Creed fan, but a lot of my friendship group is, so we were all happy to sit and watch Assassin's Creed Mirage gameplay, and within that franchise, I definitely think it's one of the better games, and it's relatively short comparatively in terms of getting the Platinum Trophy. It's not super heavy on difficulty or anything, it's just quite collectible heavy, so I certainly don't think it ruined the game, but I wouldn't have said it really did anything for it either. Next up is Tunic. I picked this up on PlayStation Plus when it was available, and it's honestly going straight to the top of my list. What an incredible game Tunic is, and the Platinum Trophy was so much fun to go in and do. There were little bits and pieces like having to go and get one of the late game items before you're supposed to, encouraging things like sequence breaking, and I think that is a really good way to do a trophy list. It's interactive, it gives you new perspectives on how the game is played, and it doesn't spoil the game in the first place. If you haven't played Tunic, please do. It's so beautiful. Next up is Cyberpunk 2077. Now, Cyberpunk is a fantastic game. Certainly, as time's gone on, we all know how its improvement and its glow up has come to pass. But the trophy list in Cyberpunk kind of annoys me. It's one of those that requires a lot of missables and requires a lot of replays for various things if you don't want to save scum and reload various different saves to try and get trophies. So I wouldn't say it completely ruined the game, but I will put it in that tier because I think that it hurt its overall impact as opposed to enhancing it. And then we have A Hat in Time. Now, I really liked this game. I thought the trophy list was pleasant. It was just a collectathon. It was very evocative of old school ways in which I would play games like Donkey Kong 64 or Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, games from that era, Croc, etc. It just rewarded you for collecting everything. So I feel that that's warranting to go into the memorable category. I don't think A Hat in Time is the best game ever made, but it was a very enjoyable romp throughout. Okay, so this next one is going to be contentious because it has potentially ruined the entire game for me, amongst other factors, which I may well make a video on by itself. But it's Final Fantasy XIV on the PS5. Do yourself a favor. Do not touch this platinum trophy. Just don't do it. It's not difficult, but it is easily the most tedious platinum I have ever done, and the only reason I even went for it is because this masochistic fool decided that I would try and get the platinum trophy for every Final Fantasy game that's ever been released, and of course that includes 14, and I've played 14 for many years. This was horrible. 3000 Fates was not enjoyable. Now, bear in mind that I am up to date with everything in 14, and by the time I went to do that trophy, I'd only done 500 or 600, so I had to grind that out, and then I'm not a crafter or gatherer, and had to do a lot of that. It didn't make me want to do those things. It actually had the adverse effect, and it made me not want to do those things. And when I finished the trophy, it just made me cathartic and think, I never want to experience it again. I would go so far as to say as it's potentially ruined the entire game for me. Oh, then we have Unicorn Overlord. Unicorn Overlord is a really nice one. I'm going to put it in forgettable though, because the trophy list isn't the reason why. The trophy list is decent. There's no missables or anything really, but it doesn't add anything to the game. It just kind of rewards you for doing the sorts of things that you would have done ordinarily, and it doesn't encourage you to step off the beaten path really. You have the Colosseum and the characters that you get from that, but the characters feel like more of a reward than the trophies do, which to be fair is a good thing. No, do you know what? I'll change my mind. I'm going to put it in the memorable category because I really did enjoy my time with Unicorn Overlord, and I enjoyed spending time with people discussing it and our tactics through it. It was a good time. It's just a great game. Now, Octopath Traveler got released for PlayStation 4 and 5 this year, and I'm going to put it in the renewed game category. I've always liked Octopath Traveler, and this time around, playing it really reinforced how much I adore the HD 2D style, and I made an entire video about the fact that I did this trophy because it made me realize that I'm not necessarily anchored to the story within an a JRPG, because I actually skipped every cutscene while I was going for this platinum, and I still really enjoyed it. It was very much a cozy experience, like going through each character, making sure I'd gotten all of the items through the various overworld actions, and the final boss was really challenging. I got so much out of playing Octopath Traveler the second time around that didn't involve the story, and it really renewed not just itself, but a lot of things about the JRPG genre as a whole for me. So we went through the Tomb Raider Remastered trilogy, and one of my friends who is a huge Tomb Raider fan wanted to come and join in with our group in order to do the Tomb Raider games. And I tell you what, I've not had so much fun watching a Tomb Raider game as I did watching this trophy playthrough. It was so much fun. We had such a laugh doing it. There were so many interactions that you just wouldn't think of to do normally. The New Game Plus version that they added in for the Remastered trilogy was really engaging for Tomb Raider 1 and 2 at the very least, and it encouraged like speedrunning and all different ways to interact with the game to extend the lifespan of a old school game. In fact, no, do you know what? I'm going to put this in the top tier because I really do think that it elevated Tomb Raider 1 a huge amount. I think at this point this was when we were doing Balatro a lot. Like, we'd been doing Balatro so much over the course of 2024, and obviously we'll get to that when we get to that in the numbers, but I think we wanted a little cool down period, so we went with a game called What the Golf, and it was very cute. It was just a short, silly, fun game. If you want a trophy that's easy to acquire, that's not particularly difficult, I would put it in the forgettable category because it has one of these trophies that I really can't stand, which is play the game for 10 hours plus or leave the game, which realistically all anyone does with a trophy like that is leave the game running while you go to bed. And we did that, but it doesn't make for an engaging trophy list for me. So I'm putting it in the forgettable category. But if you want something like cheap and cheerful that's good fun, I would go out and get it. So a game that maybe a lot of you may not have heard of, and I hadn't until we'd started playing it, is Astral Ascent. I'm a huge roguelike fan, love roguelikes. Binding of Isaac is one of my favourite games ever made, and Astral Ascent has that Dead Cells quality of combining Metroidvania style combat with a roguelike, and it was fantastic. It's really good. It's got couch co-op, which is perfect for what we were trying to do in getting the Platinum Trophy amongst a friend group. Everyone could kind of join in. You were encouraged to play the game through with multiple characters, interact with it in different ways. Really, really liked the trophy list and the game itself for Astral Ascent. And then at 182, thank goodness you're here. Now, this is going in the would go again section because this is a trophy we cracked out in a day. Like, it was a Sunday afternoon. My friend had come over, there was 6 or 7 of us in the house, and we just sat and played Thank Goodness You're Here from start to finish. And I tell you what, I don't think I've laughed at a game so much. In fact, the only reason I wouldn't go again with this game and its trophy list is because I wouldn't get to experience those laughs for the first time a second time, but it's just a fantastic game. I know this blew up a lot on the internet at the time it came out, with a lot of like Americans playing it, which made me kind of laugh internally because as a British person, the humor in Thank Goodness You're Here is so unequivocally British that I don't know how anyone else from anywhere else would get it. It's just stupid and fun, and I recommend it to everybody. Then we have Honkai Star Rail. Forgettable. I'm going to be real. One of my friends signed in with their account and the trophies just popped, so moving on. Oh, Balatro. I'm sorry, it's going in top tier. I would do this again, despite the fact that this trophy is arguably the hardest trophy we'd gotten over the entirety of 2024. If not ever. This trophy took 250 hours. If you've played Balatro, the fact that you have to finish the game with every Joker on the hardest difficulty was absolute pain, but it was pain in the most enjoyable way. Take that as you will. Loved it. I still play it. I've been playing it on my phone, even though I've blitzed this game to the moon and back. I still play it to this day, and I would do this again. And because of the mobile version, I kind of already am. Number 185, because this is numbered by the trophies that we have in total. So my account has 203 platinum trophies currently. So I've made all these icons, and I make little like spreadsheets and little fun things for our friends like at the end of each year so that we can see which ones we've all done together. I really love the way that we do platinum trophies, and if you'd like to hear more about my reasonings behind the way I tackle this, then please do comment below, because I love it and I'd love to share it with you guys and make it more of a thing for all of us. I think it'd be great. But the next one is Tomb Raider 2. So Tomb Raider 2, I think Tomb Raider 2 is good because it has much the same trophy list as Tomb Raider 1, but I think the impact of the first Tomb Raider was a lot larger for us than Tomb Raider 2 was. It's not to say it's worse in any way, it's just I don't think I would do the platinum trophy for Tomb Raider 2 again like I would with the first one, or like we would with the first one. It's a great game. There's no two ways about it, and considering that you get 3 platinums for the price of like 1 collection, it's really, really good. I will not say, however, the same thing about my next pick, and this pains me, because it's Castlevania Dominus Collection. I adore Castlevania. As a matter of fact, I own all 3 of the DS games that this collection is based on the DS still, and I still bought Dominus Collection because I love the games that much. The trophies are pathetically easy, and this is coming from somebody who did Advanced Collection, has done Symphony of the Night, has done Lords of Shadow. All of the Castlevanias that have had trophy lists I've done. Dominus Collection I found extremely disappointing, and I would rather just play the DS versions of those games again than play the Dominus Collection, because the trophy list was so disappointing, and because they're DS games, I'd rather just play them on their original hardware if I was going to do it again. a little sad that it wasn't nearly as complete feeling as the Advanced Collection was, because you did have to 100% the game for those, whereas with this one, you just kind of had to finish them, and it was just nothing. Vampire Survivors was next, because we did this as soon as it came out for PlayStation, and I'm going to say it's forgettable, not because the game isn't. Vampire Survivors is an incredible game. The trophy list doesn't really add anything to it though. It's just kind of unlocking the game as you go, and then you just get it automatically. It's fine, like if you want a nice easy trophy, then Vampire Survivors is a really good one. But unlike anything above it on this list, I just don't feel like it really added anything to the game. Number 188 is Visions of Mana. I'm going to put this in the top tier because I did go through this twice because it had a trophy list on PS4 and PS5, and stupidly, I did the PS5 version first because normally if a game has multi-platform like that, if you do the PS4 version, you can then transfer the trophies up to PS5, but you can't go the other way. And I was so excited to play Visions of Mana that I just played the PS5 version, and I would have gone back and then did it again. It did help that I reviewed the game and I did a lot of coverage for Visions of Mana when it came out, and it also helps that I'm a huge fan of the series. But I really enjoyed the trophy list for this. It was engaging, it encouraged me to play the game on harder difficulties, it wasn't obnoxiously difficult. There are collectible trophies in it, there isn't much in the way of missables though, so I'd put it in, I'm going to put it in the second tier. Okay, it's not quite as good as the ones I've put it above it, but it is really good, and I love the game. Next up is Astrobot. This isn't going to surprise anybody, it's Game of the Year for a reason. I think what I've learned this year through video games and the ones that I've put on this list are that I like my games to be games, and I struggle, despite some of the games that are on this list, with games that are like 80% cutscene and 20% game. And this is weird coming from somebody who is a JRPG fanatic, but I still like playing them. Like if you look back at the classics like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, even some of the PS1 era stuff, very few of those games have like loads of cutscenes in them that are longer than 5 minutes long. And that's partly a big reason why I think Astrobot is so good. It proves that a game can be classical, it can be just a game and it be brilliant at it. Yeah, it's a little bit self-serving from PlayStation's perspective, but as somebody who grew up with PlayStation stuff, it works really well. And you know, if it can work for Smash Bros for Nintendo, I don't see why it can't for Astrobot for PlayStation either. Next up is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy. Now, funnily enough, we're actually working on the Edgeworth Investigations game that just came out a month or two ago, and the Apollo Justice games. And I'm putting this in the memorable category because it reminded me just how much fun the Ace Attorney games really are. This is not the first time they've been reprinted. As I said, I have a big old DS collection. Again, feel free to comment if you want me to showcase some of that. I have the Ace Attorney games on my DS all the time, and I've always really enjoyed them, but I'd kind of just forgotten about them a little bit, if I'm brutally honest. And the trophies kind of brought me back into it, and my partner and I actually sat and played through these, and it was just really fun. And just like a lot of the games on this list, it's a game that's really easy to sort of chill and follow along with your friends or your partner as they're playing it. So if you haven't played the Ace Attorney trilogy or any of the Ace Attorney games previously, or even in a little while like I haven't, then this is a nice way to explore them again. 191 is Time Splitters. Now, we did this when they announced that they were bringing the Time Splitters games in with trophies, and they added the trophies in later. But ultimately, we kind of were hoping for a Tomb Raider 1 situation where like this older game had come back and had this incredible trophy list, and it was really fun to go through it all again. That didn't really happen with Time Splitters, and we were gonna do Time Splitters 2 and Future Perfect as well, and just decided against it because the trophy list in Time Splitters wasn't all that well done. You couldn't do a lot of it in co-op mode, which is what we were hoping to do, so it ended up just the single player controller getting passed around a lot, and it just made it not nearly as fun as it could have been, which is a shame. And we started to do Time Splitters 2 after it, found that the same thing was occurring, and kind of gave up and just moved on to the next game. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Now, I don't want to put this in the tier that I'm about to put it in because I think the game is incredible. I prefer Shin Megami Tensei as a whole to Persona or even Metaphor. In terms of the Atlas RPGs released this year, we only platinumed one of them, and it was Shin Megami Tensei 5, despite the fact that the trophy list is absolutely abhorrent. It is horrible. You have to play through the game 6 times to get everything, and the game's great, but after the third or fourth playthrough and you're literally just racing to get to the end of the game each time, I would say that this had a adverse effect on the enjoyment of the game. But I think the game is good enough on its own that we were still happy to go through the game that many times to get this platinum trophy. It's just a great game. Okay, this one may also be a hot take, and I'm not sure if people are gonna like me for this or if I'm gonna get sent hate, just like a lot of other people have with regards to anything regarding this game. But I'm going to put Black Myth Wukong in forgettable. Like, I like the game. I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it up until the point where I finished it. I thought Erlang was a really good boss. But by and large, I just didn't love it. Like, I think it's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. I think the massive uproar about whether it was deserving of Game of the Year or not, I was like, no, of course it doesn't. It's just, and the argument about whether it's a Souls-like or not, and like everyone was saying to me, oh, it's not a Souls-like, this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's a Souls-like. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, and sounds like a duck, it's a duck. You know, there's so many similarities that I never understood that argument. But I just thought the game was good. It's easier than I expected it to be. There was a lot of finagling with collectibles that I didn't particularly enjoy. I obviously liked the game enough to platinum it, and that's fair enough on its own. But having done a lot of the Soulsborne games, the FromSoft games, I just think that they did the job a lot better. Tomb Raider Legend. So again, we've done all of the Tomb Raiders that we can really do, and we're looking forward to the 4, 5, and 6 remaster that they're doing at the end of February as well. Tomb Raider Legend, we did because it was on PS Plus, and I'm gonna put it in forgettable because it wasn't nearly as good as the Aspire remasters had been. It wasn't really particularly difficult. I think we did this in like 2 sessions. It wasn't too bad in terms of collectibles, but some of it was a bit obnoxious. There was one moment that we had that was really funny where we were driving on a motorcycle and had to jump on a train, and then we just slipped between the slats on this train and we were laughing for a good hour after it. But beyond that, couldn't really tell you much of what happened in that game, and apart from the ending in Tomb Raider Legend is fierce. Where is my yeah, fierce, love that. 195 was Alan Wake Remastered, and I have struggled with Alan Wake. I'm a huge Control fan, and I love Remedy's storytelling. I think the way they do it, it's very Twin Peaks, it's very visually engaging. I love the way Remedy tells stories, but for some reason I could never click with the original Alan Wake, and you'll notice Alan Wake 2 is on here as well. That being said, this time around, really enjoyed it. It's a little collectathon heavy. It's a little bit collectathon heavy. Like finding all the thermos flasks and stuff. We had to go through the game a second time because we'd missed a couple and didn't realise that we had. And I hate that in trophy lists. But there were aspects of the trophy list that I found really engaging, like the ways in which you interacted with your weapons, the ways you interacted with the characters involved. It was fun, and I definitely think that Alan Wake 2 is better. But it was fun to go through Alan Wake Remastered as well. Deliver Us the Moon was next. Sadly, this is going to go in the forgettable territory as well. The trophy list wasn't particularly bad. The game is not particularly bad. It's very short, very sweet. It's kind of forgettable. It's one of those kind of games where like the narrative was quite nice, but there was not enough driving force behind the game to make me want to experience it again. If you want something that's nice and simple, then I would recommend it still. I don't think it's a bad game. I haven't played Deliver Us Mars yet, and I'd like to hear from people who have, and then maybe you could tell me whether it's worth going through that one as well. But as it stands, like I'm quite happy to kind of leave my time, or leave our time with Deliver Us the Moon on its own. Okay, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. This one's challenging because I played more of this game because of content. Anyone who's followed my channel for a while will know I had a bit of a boom with Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I really like the game. I think it's a really good game that falls so hard on its arse in the end game that I was tempted to put it in here because you do have to farm all of the weapons from Bahamut Versa at the very end of the game. Oh, Proto Bahamut, sorry, the other Bahamut, there's more than one. At the very end of the game, and it's horribly tedious. But I'm actually going to put it in the middle tier because I really did enjoy doing that, despite the fact that it's really grindy. There were other bits like collectibles and side quests that I didn't do, so like somebody else picked up the slack when I'd fallen off it because I'd spent 200 odd hours on the game already. But I do still think it's a really good game, and I don't think the trophy list is bad. I think it does its job very well, and for people who like the game, I think that it does add some extra longevity to it. So I will put it in the middle tier. 198 is still Wakes the Deep. This is going in tier 2. I'm actually just looking at this list, I'm noticing that a lot of indie games seem to really get trophy lists where a lot of AAA titles seem not to, which is kind of nice to realize actually. But still Wakes the Deep I thoroughly enjoyed, and you have to do trophies like you have to not run as fast, which in a horror game actually makes sense. It does add a little bit of extra tension. You have to make sure that you interact with all the characters properly. It's the right kind of trophy list. Although actually I will say I might knock this down one, because there was one trophy that bugged out on me where I had to interact with every crew member at least once, and I ended up having to play through the entire game again. Yeah, actually, I'm going to knock this down a peg for this because I've just reminded me how stressed out and annoyed I was by this. I had to go through the whole game a third time just to interact with something right at the end of the game that, had I known that it was going to do that, there was no way of knowing that it was going to do that, and had I not looked at a guide, I'd have never seen it. So for that reason, I'm going to bring it down a peg, but it did add a lot to the game otherwise. Alan Wake 2 did not need to have a trophy list as good as it was. Like, it's a great game. It's a great game. It's still not as good as Control for me. I like Control more than Alan Wake 2, just putting that out there, and I'm waiting very, very, with a bated breath for Control 2. But again, the way that you do the interactions, and because we'd played this later, the DLC had come out for Alan Wake 2, the lake house, and all the ones that do all the in-between bits, the night terrors, where you're playing as alternate characters, and some of them are downright hysterical and ridiculous and told in a way that only an Alan Wake game could. It's just a really strong game. The trophy list definitely adds a lot to it, just because you're interacting with the game in ways that you wouldn't normally, which is definitely the way that I classify a good trophy list, is if it's not forcing me through hoops and it's actually kind of leading me down paths to want to interact with the games in new ways. That's a hallmark of a strong trophy list for me, and a hallmark of a game that makes me want to platinum it, rather than making me think, oh god, now I have to. Okay, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The weird thing with this is I'm bouncing between here and here. It's definitely not going here. That's just not happening. But there are things about the trophy list in Rebirth that I love. Like, I complete all the VR missions. Brilliant. I like it when my games step on me. I want to be challenged. And the final challenges of the VR missions, as much as I will complain and moan through them because they're really hard, I love it. I really enjoy it. I loved streaming it. I thought it was really fun. However, the minigames, the bloat of minigames in Rebirth makes me go in the other direction. It's definitely not forgettable. I could tell you that for free. It's definitely not forgettable. But whether I think it renewed the game for me or ruined it, I genuinely don't know. However, I think that I'm going to put it in renewed. Because, unlike FF14 or Castlevania Dominus Collection or Vengeance or Cyberpunk, it did make me want to play the game again. After I finished Rebirth, I did not react very well to the story beats at the end of the game and didn't play it for 7-8 months. And then came back to it and then did a lot more with it and enjoyed it more because all I had left was the game, not the story. And again, much like Octopath Traveler, it made me renew my enjoyment of the game because I wasn't so caught up on some of the other stuff that I previously had been. So yeah, no, I'm going to put it there. I'm happy with that. Dragon Quest III, I loved it. It's memorable. I won't put it in like renewed category because I don't think that it's... there's nothing on the trophy list that I wouldn't have done by just playing the game normally. All it does is ask you to 100% the game, essentially, use all of the vocations, use all of the means to do all the monster catching. There are a lot of collectibles in this game. The mini medals and the monster hunting were a little bit tedious, so I'm tempted to put it down a peg. But no, because the highlights of this game's trophy list are really good. It does just have a few low points, but it did make me want to like interact with some of the end game content in ways I maybe wouldn't have done. So I'll put it in memorable, and but I think other people maybe might put it down a peg. And then the very last trophy that we did was Tomb Raider 3. And we actually got this on New Year's Eve at 3 minutes to midnight. So this was the very last trophy we could have physically gotten in 2024. And I'm going to put it here. Unlike Tomb Raider 1 and 2, Tomb Raider 3 is a lot more open-ended. And there's a lot more BS that comes with New Game Plus that Tomb Raider 3 had, and there were a fair few examples of bugged trophies. As a matter of fact, with the Tomb Raider trilogy in general, and I'm hoping that this isn't true for the second one, because it's not true for the Soul Reaver remasters that Aspyr have done that I'm currently working through, there's no trophy list, there's no platinum trophies on PS5. They're only on PS4, which was very peculiar. And there was a lot of just annoying things that you had to do in Tomb Raider 3 that you didn't have to do in 1 and 2. Speed running was fun. New Game Plus was not. And there was just a lot of arbitrary difficulty that this one had that the others didn't. So it was triumphant that we managed to finish it at 3 minutes to midnight and we were like cheering each other on to get it done. But I still wouldn't put it any higher than this in the tier list. So looking at this overall, I'd say that this is pretty accurate in terms of like how many of the games I absolutely was blown away by because of their trophy lists, ones I expected to really enjoy, ones I did not expect would have such a negative effect, because the weird thing there is looking at that bottom tier, at least 3 of those games are some of my favorite games of the year otherwise. Like I love FF14 for a long time. I'm not sure I do now. Castlevania is one of my favorites. Like Dawn of Sorrow is one of my favorite games of all time. And our first playthrough of SMT5 was just joy from start to finish. So it does go to show that sometimes a trophy list can really enhance a game, and sometimes it can really hurt one. So I do think that it would be nice to see a little bit more attention to detail and care that goes into trophy lists, because sometimes when you have a reason to look for them, you really can get a lot more longevity out of a game just by looking at them. So yeah, that is all 37 of our platinum trophies for 2024. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to know more about why we do trophy hunting, because it's definitely got a lot more depth for us as a friend group than check out all these platinums we've got, aren't we amazing? That's not why we do it, and it's why I haven't really talked about platinum trophy hunting until now, despite the fact that we've done so many. Do you enjoy trophy hunting? Do you enjoy completionism within your games? Do you like to play a variety of games like we have done here and experience them in new ways, such as trophy hunting or different forms of play that are fan created? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's any games this year that you'd like to see more of a review for platinum trophy hunting or completionism at the very least, then let me know. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd like to do a lot more stuff like this in addition to all the JRPG stuff. I'm thinking about doing a tier list of completionism or platinum trophy huntings for JRPG specifically, because they're some of the longest ones and I've done a fair few of them, so I'm pretty experienced in this, and having done a lot of the Final Fantasy games, that could be a tier list of its own as well. So let me know what you think. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then you can check out my Etsy store for art prints that I make, or my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel directly in that way. And I appreciate you very much if you do. So thank you all very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.